How much energy do you burn every day just pretending to have it all together? If you stripped away your title, your budget, and your authority, would anyone on your team actually choose to follow you? And here's the one that really keeps me up at night. Are you building a tribe that has your back? Or are you just managing a payroll of people who are waiting for you to leave the room so they can finally breathe? There is a massive contradiction in leadership today. It's a silent tension that hums in the background of every boardroom and every call. On one hand, we have the corporate mandate. It's the unwritten rule book we get handed the second we are promoted. It says, be professional, be composed, have all the answers. Never let them see you sweat. We are trained to build what I call the armor of competence. We polish it until it shines, and we wear it like a second skin because we think it keeps us safe. But on the other hand, there is the undeniable reality of being human. We are tribal animals. We are wired for connection. We crave leaders who are real, who are accessible, who we can actually feel. We don't just want a strategist. We want a fellow human being. And here's the conflict that is tearing teams apart. The very armor you built to get promoted is now the exact thing stopping your team from trusting you. Today, we are going to dismantle this myth of professional distance. We're going to look at the neuroscience of trust, not as a soft feeling, but as a hard biological chemical reaction. We're going to look at why your employees' brains are screaming for vulnerability, even while your business training is screaming for perfection. By the end of this episode, you won't just understand the science. You'll have a specific practical experiment to test with your team tomorrow. So put down the armor for a few minutes. Stay with me until the end. This might just change how you lead forever. Hey everyone, I'm João, and welcome back to another episode of the Age-to-Age experiment. I'm so glad you're here with me today because we are diving into a topic that is close to my heart, and honestly, one that I learned the hard way. We're talking about trust, but not the trustful kind of trust. We're talking about the biology of connection. So let's get right into it. Let's dive into the science, because I don't want you just to take my word for it. Let's look at your own biology. We've got to understand the hardware we're working with, right? When you walk into a meeting wearing your leader mask, you know, the one I'm talking about. Shoulders back, poker face, voice perfectly steady, you're projecting absolute certainty. Even though your stomach is in knots and you're worried about this quarter's numbers. You think you're projecting strength. You think you're being the calm in the storm. But biologically, you're projecting a threat. Here's what's happening in your team's brains. We've all got this amazing tech in our heads called mirror neurons. These are specialized neurons that fire not only when we do something, but when we watch someone else do it. They are our empathy hardware. Basically, they are the Wi-Fi of the human nervous system. These neurons are constantly scanning the people around us to answer one huge survival question. What is this person feeling? It's a process called neuroception, our subconscious system for detecting safety or danger. And it happens faster than you can think. When you are authentic, when your face matches your feelings, you are coherent. Your team's mirror neurons fire in sync with yours. This synchronization triggers the release of a powerhouse neurotransmitter called oxytocin. We often call oxytocin the love hormone. But in leadership, it's the bonding molecule. It lowers heart rates. It makes us more generous. It quiets the fear center of the brain. It creates that gut feeling of we are in this together. It's the chemical foundation of a tribe. But what happens when you wear a mask? What happens when you're smiling, but your eyes are dead? When you say, I'm excited about this pivot, but your micro expressions are screaming anxiety and unsafety. When you act confident, but your energy is vibrating with uncertainty. Your team's mirror neurons pick up that dissonance. They spot the gap between what they see and what they feel. Their brains unconsciously register a prediction error. You know that our brains are prediction machines. They think something's wrong here. The data doesn't match. This person is hiding something. And because the human brain is a survival machine evolved to keep us alive on the savannah, it doesn't assume you're hiding security. It doesn't give you the benefit of the doubt. It assumes you're hiding a threat. If he's hiding his feelings, what else is he hiding? Is there a layoff coming? Is he lying to me? So instead of oxytocin, their brains flood with cortisol, the stress hormone. Cortisol puts them in a state of low-grade fight or flight mode. Flow gets diverted away from the prefrontal cortex, which is the part of the brain responsible for innovation, smart problem solving, and empathy, and gets sent to the muscles. Think about that for a second. A cortisol-soaked team is biologically incapable of their best work. Their creative centers shut down. Their empathy shuts down. They stop listening to understand and start listening to defend. They become risk averse. They hoard info. They form silos. It's tragically ironic, isn't it? You're trying to look professional to earn their respect. You're trying to be the strong leader, but your biology is signaling danger, causing them to emotionally withdraw and intellectually shut down. Trust is not a logical decision. You cannot negotiate trust in a contract. You can't mandate trust in a value statement. Trust is a chemical reaction to perceived safety. And the only way to signal safety to a mammalian brain is to lower your guard. Now, let me share a story from my own life, because I didn't learn this stuff in a textbook or a TED Talk. I learned it the hard way, through the painful friction of failure, and I hope it can help you. Years ago, early in my career, I was tapped to lead this high-stakes transformation project. It was one of those make or break things. The pressure was insane. The timelines were impossible. The budget was getting cut every other week. And I figured my job, as a leader, was to be the shock absorber. I told myself, I will carry the stress so they don't have to. I will be the rock. I will filter out the noise and just give them clarity. So I built the armor. I reinforced it with steel. I walked into meetings with perfect slides, totally prepared, looking amazing every time. I had an answer for every question, even if I had to make it up on the spot. When things went wrong, when deadlines were missed or technology failed, I spun it into a challenge or a learning opportunity. When I was exhausted, when I was waking up at 3 a.m. with panic attacks, I drank more coffee, put on a sharper suit, and smiled harder. You know that toxic positivity style? Yeah, that was me. I thought I was being a great leader. I thought I was protecting them. I thought this was what executive presence looked like. But about 3 months in, the room started to feel cold. It wasn't hostile. It was worth. It was numb. I'd ask for feedback and get silence, just blank stares. I'd try to rally the team with a motivational speech and get polite empty nods. People stopped coming to me with problems. They stopped sharing bad news. The energy was dead, and I couldn't understand why. I was doing everything right, according to what I believed in. I was competent. I was consistent. I was strong. I was the rock. One afternoon, everything broke. The dam finally burst. We hit a massive roadblock, and it looked like the whole project and maybe my reputation was going to collapse. I walked into the team meeting, ready to put on the armor again. I had my spin ready. I was ready to give the haha speech about resilience. I was ready to fake it one more time. But I sat down at the table, looked at the faces of my team, exhausted, checked out, waiting for me to talk at them, and I just couldn't do it. I was too tired to lie again. I put my head in my hands for a second, took a shaky breath, looked up, and said, "Guys, I'm going to be honest. We are in a really difficult moment here. I don't know how to fix this one. I'm actually scared we might miss the deadline, and I don't have a plan B right now. I don't know how the future's going to look like." You could have heard a pin drop at that moment. The silence was heavy. It felt like it lasted an hour. And inside my head, my insecurity was screaming, "That's it. You blew it. You showed weakness. They are going to lose all respect for you." But then something incredible happened. Something that changed my view of leadership forever. One of the team members that usually had a behavior of sitting with the arms crossed, cynical and silent stare, leaned forward. He uncrossed his arms. He looked me in the eye and said, "Okay, we understand that there is an issue here, and I think I've got a solution. Let's talk about it so that we can go through this together." And then someone else spoke up. "I can stay late if necessary so that we can work it out." Then another, I can make some phone calls. I can have some conversations that are going to help with that." The room came alive. People stood up and started whiteboarding. The energy shifted from dead to electric in seconds. In 10 minutes, we solved the problem that I'd been carrying alone for a week, even longer. Why? What happened in that room? Because the moment I admitted I didn't have the answer, I signaled that I needed them. I created a vacuum that their brilliance could fill. The moment I showed fear, their mirror neurons finally recognized me as human. The threat signal turned off. The safety signal turned on. The oxytocin started flowing. The tribe was formed. I realized right then that my competence had been pushing them away. My perfection made me unreachable. It made me an object, not a person. It was my vulnerability that invited them in. It was my humanity that unlocked their loyalty. I wonder if you ever had a moment like this in your career, or maybe you're still waiting for it. Maybe you're still carrying the weight of the world, afraid that if you drop it, everything will shatter. But what if dropping the mask is actually the only way to build something real? Have you ever thought about that? And this brings us to the big mindset shift we need to make. We need to rewrite our definitions. We often confuse vulnerability with weakness. In our culture, we use them as synonyms. But in leadership and in physics, they are opposites. Weakness is the inability to act. It's fragility. Vulnerability is the courage to act without a guarantee of the outcome. It's emotional risk. It takes zero courage to be perfect. It takes zero courage to hide behind your armor. It takes massive courage to say, "I don't know," or "I need help." Think about tuning forks, from physics class. There's a concept called resonance. If you strike a tuning fork and there is another one nearby tuned to the same frequency, the second one will start to vibrate. They don't have to touch. The energy transfers right through the air. That's sympathetic resonance. Leadership is all about resonance. It's about emotional contagion. But here's the rule of physics. You cannot resonate with a false frequency. If you are vibrating with false confidence, masking, and your team is vibrating with hidden anxiety, there is no resonance. There is only noise, just static. To create resonance, you have to tune yourself to the truth of the moment. This is what we call co-regulation. As a leader, your nervous system is the loudest one in the room. You set the emotional thermostat. If you're tight, restricted, or fake, everyone else tightens up. Now, if you breathe, if you admit the reality, if you ground yourself in truth, you authorize everyone's nervous system to down-regulate. You let them exhale. When you do this, you create psychological safety zone. And let's not forget, Google's famous project Aristotle study analyzed thousands of teams to find the secret ingredient of high performance. And guess what? It was not IQ. It was not budget. It wasn't which school they went to. It was psychological safety. The belief that I can speak up, make a mistake, or show a weakness without being punished or humiliated. And who sets the tone? You do. Not by what you say in your policy documents, not by hanging a poster on the wall that says, "We value candor," but by what you show in your behavior. If you never make a mistake, you silently teach your team that mistakes are not allowed. You create a zero defect culture, which is basically a culture that cannot innovate. If you never ask for help, you teach them that needing help is weakness. You create a culture of isolation. If you never admit you're tired, you teach them that burnout is the price for admission. You are the tuning fork. So, what frequency are you broadcasting? Are you broadcasting the static of perfection or the resonance of humanity? Now, I've got to give a crucial warning here. I'm not talking about performative vulnerability. That's when a leader shares a small, safe flaw just to manipulate the team into trusting them. Oh, I'm so bad at Excel, ha 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 ha. That kind of thing. People can smell that from a mile away. It's the famous BS. That's just another mask. And I'm definitely not talking about emotional dumping either, where you treat your team like your therapist and you unload all your trauma onto them. That's just irresponsible. I'm talking about strategic honesty, sharing the truth relevant to the work, to the moment, and to the relationship for the purpose of moving the team forward. All right, now let's go for the H2H experiment of the week. This one's called the 2-minute truth. We've talked about science, mirror neurons, neuroception, and the chemistry of oxytocin versus cortisol. We've talked about the philosophy, resonance, truth, and the courage to be seen. Now let's make it real. How do we take this out of the podcast and into the boardroom? How do you start applying this without oversharing? How do you lower the armor without feeling naked? And that's where the experiment comes in. Here's how it works. In your next team meeting, whether it's a Monday, stand up, or strategic review, I want you to switch up the opening ritual. Usually, we start with logistics, with transactional conversations. Can you hear me? Who's taking notes? Let's look at the agenda. What are we going to talk about today? What are we going to cover? We, we dive straight into the content and ignore the context. This time, instead of starting with the KPIs or the status updates, I want you to take the first 2 minutes to share something real. It doesn't have to be dramatic. It doesn't have to be a dark secret. It just has to be true, current, and slightly vulnerable. It has to cost you a tiny bit of comfort to say it. It could sound something like, before we start, I want to share that I have been struggling with the decision on Project X. I'm feeling a bit stuck between these two options. And honestly, I'm worried about making the wrong call. I'm not asking you to solve it right now, but I want you to know where my head is at. Or it could be relational. I realized yesterday that I was pretty short with you guys in that email. I was stressed about a board meeting, but that's not an excuse. I didn't show up as the leader I want to be. I'm sorry, and I'm going to try to make it better today. Or simply, you can make it human. Look, guys, I'm feeling a bit low energy today. I didn't sleep quite well, and I'm feeling the pressure of this deadline. So if I seem quiet or less enthusiastic, please know it's not about you. I'm relying on your energy to help pull us through this one. Just 2 minutes. Then take a breath and move on to the agenda. Okay, let's look at the numbers. Here's what I want you to observe. Don't just do it, watch the reaction. Check the eye contact. Does it soften? Check the body language. Do people uncross their arms? Do they lean in? Notice the quality of the ideas that come up later in the meeting. Notice the silence. Is it a tense silence or a thoughtful silence? You're running a chemical experiment. You're injecting a small dose of humanity into a sterile environment to see if it triggers an oxytocin response. My prediction? You will feel the tension drop. You will see shoulders relax. And you will find that by stepping down from the pedestal of perfection, you actually step up in your leadership authority. You become more real and therefore more followable. And if nobody says anything back, if they just stare at you, what do? That's okay. That's data as well. It tells you that the trust battery is low. It tells you that it might take 10 of these 2 minutes truth before they feel safe enough to reciprocate. But you've planted the seed, and that's already a powerful step forward. All right, now let's start to wrap up this episode. Look, leadership is not about being the smartest person in the room. If you are the smartest person in the room, you are in the wrong room. And usually, the smartest person in the room is the loneliest person in the room. Leadership is about connection. It's about creating a container, a space where other human beings feel safe enough to bring their best gifts, their craziest ideas, and their honest concerns to the table. It's about unlocking the collective intelligence of the tribe. And you cannot build that space with your armor on. Armor deflects connection. You can only build it with skin in the game. So this week, take off the mask, even just for 2 minutes. Let them see the human behind the title. Let them see the person behind the profession, behind the performance. It might feel risky. It might feel uncomfortable. It might even hurt inside if you're not used to do it. Your amygdala might scream danger, but trust the science. Trust your biology. Vulnerability is the bridge, and your team is waiting for you to cross it. Thank you so much for listening to the H2H experiment. I truly appreciate you staying with me and choosing to do this work. If this conversation sparked something in you, don't let it stop here. You can dive deeper into these ideas by reading our articles on LinkedIn or checking out our community on the ECXO platform. And if you're ready to really commit to this journey, you can pick up our books on Amazon. Here, we've got 3 of them here. We have 5 already published. Or you can just visit our website, the h2hexperiment.com, to learn more about who we are and what we do. Until next time, take care of yourself and remember, perfection is a wall. Vulnerability is a door. Open the door. See you next time. Bye.